Hi, it's Angelo Caruso, and I'm about to tell you a story about a famous person I once met. Before I do that, if you like this kind of content, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Click that silver bell so that you're notified of new content. I really appreciate the likes and the comments. Thank you so much. So I'm on my way to Detroit Metropolitan Airport one time, and at the time I was using a service, so I was shuttling from the parking lot to the terminal. And on these buses, there's not a whole lot to do except stare at the person in front of you. There were probably 6 to 8 people on this bus on this particular trip. And I'm looking at this guy and I decide I think I know him. And if it's who I think it is, he does not want me to call attention to him on the shuttle bus. So I decide I'll make my move when we collect our bags. So we get to the terminal, everybody gets off the bus, we're collecting our bags at the back, tipping the driver and so on. And I said to the person, "Excuse me, are you James Hoffa Jr.?" Now at this point, James Hoffa Sr. had been missing for many, many years. He's probably the most famous missing persons case in America. The FBI can't find him, the mob can't find him, his family can't find him. Books have been written about this. I Heard You Paint Houses is the famous book. The Irishman is the famous movie by Martin Scorsese. And so this guy, James Hoffa Jr., is mostly famous through his missing dad, who happened to be head of the UAW and a person of note. Bobby Kennedy was one of his big enemies back in the day. And so a lot of history with his father, and I don't know how much this guy likes being recognized in public, so I was kind of taking it easy. And he didn't smile when I asked him, "Are you James Hoffa Jr.?" But he did nod that he's the guy. And I said, "Well, it's nice to meet you. I've heard so much about you, and we must live in the same area because I know you're from Oakland County here in Michigan. I just wanted to say hi and introduce myself. I do conflict resolution work. Would it be okay if I gave you my business card?" And what's he going to say? I guess I kind of euchred him into an answer, and he said, "Well, yeah, of course." And so I handed him my card. And as I walked away, I was taken with 2 things. First of all, I was glad I met James Hoffa Jr., interesting cat. And then secondly, I was cursing myself for giving him my card because at the time I had done a big tour of duty on the conflict res circuit. That's what we called it in the speaking business, conflict resolution. And I didn't want to do it anymore. And here I had handed my card to one of the most important union representatives in the country, and unions, of course, are steeped in conflict with negotiations and all kinds of mediation and stuff like that. And I'm like, what did I just do? But the reason that I wanted to meet him was because I had done so much work in conflict res. I had learned through the years that there are 5 basic ways to solve conflict. The first way is that you would avoid it, right? That's an easy way to avoid it. To deal with conflict, just not deal with it. The second way to deal with conflict is to accommodate it. The third way to deal with confrontation is to compromise. The fourth is to compete with it. And the fifth is collaboration. And what I've learned through the years is that collaboration is, all things being equal, the best way to deal with confrontation. This, of course, depends on the type of confrontation, but if the relationship is important to you, collaboration is probably the best way to go. And then, of course, you might want to know which one's easiest. Well, avoidance is by far easiest, but sometimes that causes problems because when you avoid confrontation, nothing happens, it doesn't get solved, it may not go away, and it festers. The one that is hardest is, of course, the one that's most beneficial. It works out that way sometimes, and that is collaboration. I don't do much conflict res work anymore, but I've been getting some calls lately from municipalities and government agencies. I don't know why. Sometimes it works like that. I'll do well in something, and then I'll get a bunch of calls from that industry. So anyway, I thought you'd enjoy the story of how I met James Hoffa Jr. and at the same time learn a little bit about how to deal with confrontation, deal with conflict. So thanks very much for listening, and be sure to click that silver bell and subscribe. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.